Hello everyone and welcome to 30 Days of Java. It's day 22 now and today we'll discuss generics in Java. Our agenda for this video would be to first understand what are generics and why do we need them. Then we'll take a look at how to use them and finally we'll look at wild characters in Java. So let's begin. To understand generics, we first need to understand why we need them. Imagine we have to create a class which will store an integer value and print it out on the console when we call the showValue method. Now suppose in the future we have to create another class that will do the same exact thing but for double data type. And then further down the road we have to create yet another class which will again do the same thing but for string data type now. Now you can see the problem with this approach. The logic for all of those classes are the same. The only difference among them is the type of data that they are using. This leads to code duplicacy, which is a big no-no in the production environment, as it could make it harder to debug or maintain code. To resolve this issue, Java 5 introduced the concept of generics. Generics in Java are a powerful feature that allows you to define classes, interfaces, and methods with a placeholder for the type that they operate on. This enables type-safe code and eliminates the need for casting. In simple words, it allows us to use the same logic for different data types without duplicating our code. Now let's implement this on IntelliJ to better understand it. In IntelliJ, we already have a few classes already set up. Let's look at them before moving on with the generics. So first we have the integer printer class that stores an integer value and shows it on console when we call the showValue method. The same thing is followed for a string printer class, but it stores the string data type value. And same thing is also followed by a double printer class that stores a double data type value. Now as you can see that in all of those classes we are using the exact same logic. The only difference among them is the data type that they are using. So we can use a generic class here to handle all of those scenarios for different data types in a single class. So let's do that now. So we'll go to src, then new, and then Java class, and we'll name this class as printer. Now the syntax for a generic class is almost same as a simple class. The only difference is that after the class name, we type in smaller than t and then greater than. Now this t denotes the data type that we'll be using with this printer generic class. So let's continue. We'll define a property for this class that is t value that is similar to other classes, and we'll also define a method public void so value that would simply output the value on the console. And that's it. We are ready to use this generic class. Now as I have already mentioned, that t here defines the data type that we'll be using with this printer class. But it's not necessary that you use the t here. You can type in anything. So I can type in anything and then copy paste it here, and it would work without any issues. But in Java, we generally denote a generic data type with the character t. So we'll change this again to t so that you get accustomed with the t here. Now let's use this class in our main program. For that, we'll go to first program here, and then we'll instantiate an object of that class by typing in printer, and then we'll give it the data type. So one thing to note here is when using generic class, we'll always need to use an object. It won't work with a primitive data type. So we'll need to type in integer, that is a wrapper class for int, for using it with printer class. Then we'll name this object as printer, then new and printer. Now I can use printer.value and give it an integer value of 10 and simply use printed.showValue. Now if I run this program, you can see it returned back 10 on the console. Now I can also create another object for the same class, printer, and this time use a string data type. I'll name this object as printer2, then new printer, then printer2 dot value will be set to hello, printer2 dot show value. Now if I run this, you can see it returned back hello in the second line. So it's able to work with both integer and string data type. I can do the same thing for double data type as well. If I copy paste the same program, let's change the data member, change it here as well, and we'll also need to change the value. So we'll give it a value of 30.1. And it still works the same. Now this is the power of generic data types. You can create a single class and that would work with different data types without any change in its logic. Up until this point, we have been using the unbound generic class that allows all type of data types or object types to be used with it. But what if we want to create a generic class that only allows a certain type of data types or object types to be used with it? For that, we can modify our printer class to make it a bound generic class. So for that, I can simply type in t space extends and then the name of the interface. So I am using the vehicle interface that I just created. This vehicle interface is implemented by two classes, bike class and car class. And this interface only has a single method, that is showCost. This method only outputs the cost of the vehicle on console. So if you see here in our car class, it's outputting 2.5 lakh in the console. Now coming back to our printer class, you can see once I have written extends vehicle, this printer class would only allow data types that implements the interface vehicle. That is why we are getting three related problems here. If I go back to my first program, you can see I'm getting a lot of compile time errors because these object types do not implement the vehicle interface. But if I change this from integer to car and then change its value to new car, and let's comment out this part. Now if I run this program, you can see it works without any issues. So this is how you can create a bound generic class. You can extend the list of the valid data types that this printer class can use by simply typing in space ampersand space and then the name of another interface. So I can type in serializable interface, and this printer class now also allows object types that implements the serializable interface. Now let's remove this. Now we can also add classes here with interface, but there are some restrictions while extending a class. The first restriction is that you can only extend a single class at a time. This is due to the fact that Java doesn't allow multiple inheritance in it. Another restriction is that we have to put the name of the class before the name of the interface. So I have to put it something like this. The name of the class, that is car, space, ampersand, and then space again. Now before ending this video, I would also like to talk about wildcard characters in Java. So let's remove this. And now create another function here, public static void print Now this method would take in a list of integers. Items. We'll also need to import java.utils. And then inside this method, we'll have a for each loop where items, and this loop would output the value of the list one by one in the console. I'll simply type in sout item. Now I can call this method from my main method by typing in first list integer items equal to array dot as list 1, 2, 3 and 5. Now I can call this method by typing in print items. Now if I run this program, you can see it printed out all the elements of that list in the console. But what if I need to pass in a list of strings as well to this function? Because if I create another list of strings, if I copy this, I'll change the name here, items2, and change the data type to string and change its element to hello world. Now if I call the print method on this list, it would give me a compile time error because I'm trying to pass a list of strings when it's expecting a list of integers. So this problem can be resolved by using the wildcard characters. So instead of passing a list of integers here, I can simply pass in list ? items. This tells the compiler that our print method is expecting a list that can be of different data types. So I can also run it for a list of strings. If I run this, you can see it printed out the integers and then also printed out hello world. Now I can also use multiple generics with a function. So I can create another function here, public static, and then I'll use the generic here, smaller than t, greater than, then void, that is the return type, and then the name of the function, that is say. Here I can type in capital T, then message, and then I can also use another generic here, v, and I can call this message2. I'll also need to declare it here, t, v. Now I can simply output both of them by typing in message plus then message2. Now if I call this method, say, and pass it hello, and then integer value 1, and let's comment this part out for now and run this. You can see it printed out hello and 1. I can also change the return type of this method from void to t, and here I'll need to write in return message, that is of object type t. Now I can store the value in a var temp and then print it out. Now if I run this program again, you can see I used a generic return type and it returned back the string hello. I can change this hello to a double like 40.323 and run this again, and it would return back a double data type. So this is how the generic works in Java. As always, we'll end this video with a quote that says, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Thank you for watching and have a great day.